And welcome to WMMBAM.com, our video on demand section, or those of you joining us live on this Thursday morning after Matt Reed has been on Bill Mick Live. Matt, thanks for sticking around for an extra few minutes.
Always happy to do that, Bill.
Time for us to have a little bit of a feisty discussion, I think. Took exception with one of your thumbs up, thumbs down in, well, I guess it was Wednesday's column in the editorial pages.
That's what we're there for, Bill, is for you to take exception to us.
Well,
to provoke this kind of
discontent?
Discussion. Yes.
You were taking shots and kind of chiding these write-in candidates for getting involved and closing down Republican primary elections, saying that it left out 57% of Brevard's voting public with races that are important to the whole county. Give me your thought process as you put that thumbs up, thumbs down together.
I don't have a problem with closed primaries. I don't think that if somebody is, if there truly are, candidates and a write-in candidate who wants to run, or there's a Democrat in the race and there's a closed primary, I don't think that everybody should have a right to vote in that Republican primary. These are party nominating affairs. Mm-hmm. We don't have a right to do that. But it's the reason. If somebody is playing a game just to close that down, to try to manipulate the election, to keep so many voters from having a say in who their next clerk of court is going to be, for example, and they have no interest in actually taking that office, then I think that's unethical. And I just think that's for the wrong reasons. And it's too bad, because in this case, I don't have a problem with who voters necessarily chose. I do have a problem with the fact that in a race that was going to decide, that only one party got a chance to do that. Mm-hmm. And that's not only not even a majority of voters, it's only about a third of all adults in Brevard County.
Well, let's go back to your unethical point, though. I agree with you on the ethics of it. If the write-in candidate says to us, when we know better, I'm not running at the behest of any candidate on the Republican side, when 9 times out of 10, that's a load of crap. Most of the time, one candidate who believes it's an advantage to him to have only Republicans vote in the race will say, I've got to get a write-in to close this so I don't have to worry about reaching out to Democrats or whatever else. I'm going to just deal with Republican super voters or whatever, and that's where I have my best shot at winning this. Admit it and acknowledge it. It's a perfectly legitimate campaign tactic, but admit that's who you are and what you're doing. If you really want the job, chances are you're not running as a write-in, because it doesn't happen very often that a write-in would ever be elected. But let's be honest about it. There I've got an ethical issue. But as far as the tactic itself, I don't have a problem, and I lay the blame somewhere else. If that other 57% of Brevard voters want to vote, how about the Democratic Party stepping up and fielding a nominee in these races? That way they at least have a choice. If they field multiple nominees, they get to have a primary too. But I don't want non-Republicans, and that would include the Paulistines who are non-party affiliated or some third party somewhere. I don't want them picking a Republican nominee, and I'm sure the Democrats don't want me picking their nominee.
Listen, write-in rules exist for a reason. It's to allow people who don't have a lot of money and don't have a lot of organizational support and are maybe independent to at least have a chance to get on a ballot, to at least provide some options. And independent voters like me, no party affiliation, look, that's the deal. We understand we're not going to be able to vote in party primaries. I had 3 judges in a school board race to vote on Tuesday. I get that. But I guess my test is, if we endorsed you, would it make sense? Would it make sense for us to call you in and interview you as a candidate? Or is this clearly just a game? Because if it's just a game, to me, that's not right. And I don't like our election laws. Maybe it should be harder to get on the ballot as a write-in. I think that's a legitimate debate. But in the case where there are only 2 candidates from one party running for an office, and it's an important constitutional office that is supposed to be just kind of a professional job that is supposed to work on everybody's behalf, then I think maybe everybody ought to be able to vote on it, or make that race a nonpartisan race. I don't know why necessarily the person who runs our court system, or is our sheriff, or is our property appraiser, why we necessarily need somebody from one party or the other to run those jobs anyway.
Well, it's because of how the political system is in this country. It is a partisan system, and it is largely, like it or not, a 2-party system. And I'm sorry, if the Democrats want to vote in that primary election season, they need to field candidates to do so. And if they can't step up and be big boys and girls and play on the big field with everybody else, I don't want them dabbling in my primary. Whether there's a write-in candidate or not, they have no business voting in that primary, making a decision as to which Republican is the best Republican to do that job. If they want to have a choice, field a Democratic candidate or 2 or 4 and have your own primary, or at least have your own candidate waiting for the primary to be over.
I agree with you on the key point of independents and Democrats should have no right to vote in a Republican primary, and vice versa. I mean, if it was only 2 Democrats running, I don't think Republicans should have a right to vote in that Democratic primary.
Right.
I don't think the fact that right now in this decade, Republicans are so much better organized and professionalized and are coming up with better candidates and stronger elections. I don't think that means that the newspaper has to somehow wade in and equalize things for people. It is Democrats' jobs to come up with a candidate who can run and get behind him and raise money for him. I think that's absolutely right. Florida Today does not endorse in the primaries for a reason, because we consider those to be party
affairs.
Those are nominating processes. Between Todd Maddox and Wayne Ivey, those are the 2 strongest, best funded, and best organized candidates in the campaign, with no offense meant for Adrian Moss Beasley, the Democrat. But
who, by the way, is a former West Virginia
It's not up to Florida Today to decide who the Republicans should nominate for sheriff.
Right.
But there were a lot of people saying, you need to wade into there and come up with some sort of, either champion that race should be open to everybody because that's likely to be our next sheriff, or you should nominate because, the way to tell you, because that's, no. You Republicans work that out. We'll see in the general election.
Well, I was glad to hear you say that as a no-party affiliated guy, and I respect your stance there. Being the journalist that you are, you want to stay out of those partisan frays, evaluate it based on your own principles and where you see elections as they should go. I was happy to hear you acknowledge that those voters, whether it's Green Party, no party affiliated, Libertarian Party, Constitution Party, have no business playing in primaries for Republicans or Democrats. If your political beliefs are so strong that you can't affiliate with Republicans who may be closer to your views than Democrats, or with Democrats who may be closer to your views than Republicans, if you still can't affiliate with that party, you got no business trying to tell them who to nominate. Either jump in, be part of the party, and try to make a difference in it, or stay the heck out.
I'm with you on that, Bill, and it's been interesting to me to see the way parties have always been coalitions of different interests. That's kind of the way the American system works.
We think they're this monolithic thing that has just one identity, and that's not true.
Absolutely not. This isn't Italy, where they have 56 different political parties.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
The reason one of the advantages of having 2 political parties is it forces the people, at least within the party, to sort of build coalitions, moderate, make deals, come up with things that at least work for a lot of people. And what we've seen in Brevard County, I think, has been interesting, is the degree to which a lot of people who were libertarians, who were Tea Partiers, who were people who were discontent with the Republican Party, have sort of come back, formed their own Liberty Caucus, their Catalyst Fund. They've gotten involved. They're running for committee members. They're trying to change the Republican Party from the inside. Now, independents and Democrats are freaking out. Look how far to the right the Republican Party is going. But
doesn't that bolster their argument, though, when we get to campaign season?
Yes.
Set up the distinction and
Get
don't be afraid
yourself.
of it.
Go out and reach out. Bring other people, because all that is a sign that those people got involved and have been effective in bringing the party around and including them.
I think we saw results of that in Tuesday's election, in all honesty.
In the Democratic side, I think what we have seen in the last decade or so is a party that wasn't very organized. It was a coalition that was more of a kind of a club of people that wanted to get together, talk national politics, that sort of thing, but weren't very serious and organized about mounting real campaigns. They left
and
that
doing
up.
something here at home.
We're starting to see that come around a little bit. You're starting to see a couple of candidates get serious again.
I don't think anyone would argue that the most powerful county commissioner right now is Robin Fisher out of District 1. He has run that commission and had done exactly what he wanted to do, and 3 of the 4 others just fall into line with him like they are little robots doing his bidding. And thank God Trudy Infantini's there to at least raise the objection and say, you know what, there's a problem with this, and here's the problem. But there is a very effective Democrat politician in this county. Kendall Moore would be a phenomenal elected official should he choose to run and get elected on a county level, on a state level. I would love to see Kendall Moore. And as a guy who has some philosophical difference with me, but I respect him, his judgment, his thought process, and where we have differences, we can discuss them and we can move on. We're going to have a lot of areas where we agree. Had a caller on the show this morning who is a fiscally conservative Democrat who's been appointed to Satellite Beaches City Council. When he called the show, he started talking about fiscal accountability and the results of Tuesday's election and voters looking at those issues when they make a decision. And I made it a point to ask him on the show, will you real quickly tell this audience your political affiliation? Because not a lot of folks would have believed he was a Democrat. There are good Democrats in the county to put into office. Tony Sasso. We have some big disagreements on environmental issues, but I think Tony served us well in the State House. And when he ran against Sean Campbell, was the right choice to put in Tallahassee during that time. And Republicans could beat me up for saying it, but Sean Campbell was not ready for prime time. Tony Sasso was and did a good job in Tallahassee for the term that he was there.
All of the Democrats that you have mentioned are Clinton-style Democrats. They are pro-business, pro-growth, because they want to push out that circle of prosperity. They see a role for government to play as an activist, and that's where they differ. Mm-hmm. But they are not socialists in any way. They're not into
not at all.
Just, growing government willy-nilly or taxing more.
Well, except for Robin Fisher.
More.
He wants to tax and spend like crazy. But
look at where he is coming from. He is trying to grow jobs in an area that is hard up for them. He is trying to put together a business plan. Again, this is where Republicans and Democrats differ, but he has done it in a way with that North Brevard economic zone, which keeps taxes up there, builds it up.
Right.
But that's about growing jobs. It's about growing business. It's not about putting more people on food stamps or extending health care to more people. That's about giving people a chance to get a job and become self-sufficient, which is sort of that Clinton definition of freedom. Government can help you get there in their minds, and that is a different. Kendall Moore, that guy is a person who's going to be able to connect with people in a sort of a socially conservative way. Mm-hmm. He's the first person to tell you. He grew up in black churches, very socially conservative, and
just a wonderful guy.
If Democrats could reach out and reconnect with that kind of a ethic in Brevard County, mm-hmm. they might have more success than they have. Well, and you might see more of them on the ballot.
If they would moderate to what the positions and opinions are of the Democrats who are here in large part, instead of play into the fringe groups. The sad part is, in Democratic leadership, you end up getting fringe group people in charge, and they tend to pursue those fringe issues. The gay marriage thing.
They've been the same small group that gets involved in every kind of cause.
Yeah.
The Democrats here are the people that showed up for Occupy Space Coast. They're the same people that showed up to protest any sort of Republican speech. They're the same people who show up and run the National Organization of Women here.
Not representing the mainstream of their party.
Well, they're active, they're passionate, just like the people that are involved in the Tea Party here.
Right.
But you have, again, those kind of Kendall Moore, Robin Fisher, Tony Sasso kind of Democrats
Lloyd French that I was referring to.
They will go to those people, but that small group of activists doesn't help you get elected.
No.
And that's important.
They need to play to the mainstream of their party, which is not the fringe element. And yes, the party's inclusive of those folks, but that is not the mainstream in Brevard County. There are good Democrats out there that would be good public servants. It's too bad we don't have that kind of engagement and involvement.
I'm surprised by how many typically Democratic interests there are in Brevard County who squawk every time they get run over by a truck again legislatively, or from something from the county commission level, attorneys who are getting their fees capped and entire categories of
when
legal
they don't
actions
put a candidate up that could fight
ruled out. Exactly. Or teachers who they'll go out and they'll vote Republican, and then that same Republican will turn around and take away their tenure, take away freeze their pay, and they say, well, when is this going to stop? Well, guess what? When you elect somebody who sympathizes with you.
Well, elections, as we've said, have consequences, and so does the clock, as we are out of time. Florida Today's Matt Reed. Thank you. I appreciate it. We'll do this some more.
I love the opportunity to be here with you, Bill.
All right, we'll do it again. And we'll see you back here. Keyword video at WMMBAM.com.